Welcome to the Persecution Report. I'm Greg Musselman. Coming up, the alarming abuses of Christians in Laos. Also, another pastor in India is attacked. Later, the ongoing persecution of evangelical Christians in Vietnam.
Even though we are facing it, we are also horrified by that, being beaten up and thrown like that. In Vietnam, we have no right to think and speak the truth.
Those reports are just ahead on the Persecution Report. 2 Muslim militants in Somalia murdered a member of a secret Christian community in Lower Shabelle region as a part of a campaign to rid the country of Christianity. An area source told Compass Direct that 2 al-Shabaab militants shot 21-year-old Hassan Adoui Adan in Shalambad town after entering his house at around 7:30 in the evening. According to sources in the East African nation, 2 al-Shabaab members dragged him out of his house, and after 10 minutes they fired several shots at him. He died immediately. The militants then shouted Allah Akbar, God is great, before fleeing. Adan, single and living with his Muslim family, was said to have converted to Christianity several months ago. Area Christians say they suspect someone had informed the Islamic militants of his conversion. Hindu militants beat 30-year-old pastor and evangelist Ramesh Devda in Madhya Pradesh, India. Pastor Ramesh was traveling by motorbike with his 2 sons when 3 militants on motorbikes suddenly blocked the way. The militants, drunk and armed with large bamboo sticks and clubs, beat the pastor in front of 10-year-old Elias and 8-year-old Shimon. They threatened to kill Pastor Ramesh and warned him not to come to the area again. They delivered brutal blows all over his body, including his head. When others arrived on the scene, the attackers fled. Pastor Ramesh was taken to hospital for severe injuries, including a fractured skull. Although he believes the attack was pre-planned, he does not want to report it to the police as he fears retaliation. 4 Muslims beat an evangelist to death and assaulted his pregnant wife in Warabi, Ethiopia. Evangelist Abraham Abira died on the spot. His wife sustained a severe head injury and was left unconscious on the street, was found and taken to a hospital in a nearby town where she regained consciousness. Bertukan's unborn baby fortunately survived the attack. Bertukan said that she knew 2 of the attackers, adding that as the Muslims were beating her and her husband, they said, "You are growing in number in our area. You are spreading your message. We will destroy you." The attackers remain at large. A Christian leader in the area said the men may not be arrested because the local officials are also Muslims. The area is 97% Muslim. Several Christians were recently attacked and killed in Chenghoang Province, Laos, underscoring the intense repression and abuse facing followers of Christ in the nation. Troops from the Lao People's Army caught a group of Christians belonging to the Hmong community, an ethnic minority. All the believers' Bibles were confiscated. The troops shot and killed 4 of the women after repeatedly raping 2 of them. Their husbands and children were beaten up, tied up, and forced to watch the gruesome killings. At last report, the whereabouts of the surviving believers were unknown. The absence of free press and the lack of information infrastructure in Laos, a communist state, often prevents news from reaching the outside world, including that of the persecution of Christians.
After
I shared Christ to some prisoner there, and the police took me to interrogate one more time. They said that I bring people to know Christ. I pay money for them and ask them to be the member of Christian and build against the government. I said, no, I didn't do that. And they hit my head, they kicked my shoulder, and they kicked my bottom, and also my chest. And I fell down. I didn't know what happened after that. When I woke up, again, I was in the jail.
Please pray for the Christians in Laos who often pay a huge price to follow Jesus. In the neighboring country of Vietnam, the government has been increasingly harassing a peaceful group of Christians living in the Central Highlands. Although the Christian Montagnards have always been a target of persecution, the Vietnamese government has stepped up its repression of this indigenous minority, forcing hundreds to renounce their religion. According to a report from Human Rights Watch, the Vietnamese government has increased its harassment of peaceful ethnic minority Christians in the Central Highlands, targeting members of unregistered house churches. As Denise Lottie reports, the Vietnamese government is trying to portray itself as allowing freedom of religion.
It's Sunday morning in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City as it's now known. On the surface, this could be any church service in North America. Even some of the choruses sung here are translated from English. But the similarities end there. This is another church in Saigon. The hidden camera shows government officials raiding the building and breaking up a service held by the Assemblies of God congregation. It wasn't the first time. The reason for the raid? Officials said those meeting didn't have permission to do so. In communist Vietnam, Christianity isn't illegal, nor is any religion. But what the law says and how it's practiced are often two different things. Just ask this man, Reverend Nguyen Hung Quang, a Mennonite pastor who's become a thorn in the flesh of Vietnam's ruling party.
What makes Pastor Quang so dangerous is what he knows. As a trained lawyer, he's challenged the government repeatedly on its violations of religious freedoms. He's not just speaking for himself, but for many other persecuted minorities.
In the last 20 years, he's been arrested repeatedly and imprisoned, slandered in newspapers, and followed by police. We've agreed to meet in a safe house in one of Saigon's busy neighborhoods.
Pastor Quang?
Yes.
Hi.
They follow me for the last 20 years, but in this period, it's more intense.
On December 14th, 2010, an estimated 500 soldiers and police oversaw the demolition of a two-story building that was both the home of Pastor Quang and the headquarters of the Vietnam Mennonite Church. Though he did not resist the demolition, he was beaten unconscious when he objected to the arrest of 20 Bible school students.
Even though we are facing it, we are also horrified by that, being beaten up and thrown like that. In Vietnam, we have no right to think and speak the truth.
If anything, these events provoke Pastor Quang to speak even louder. He says his legal training has helped him to be a voice for those who can't speak for themselves. Still, Pastor Quang has landed in jail on 7 occasions, most recently in 2005.
Whenever I think back of times in prison, I think this is the best time I had communion with the Lord. In 2005, when I was in prison, in the room they have 100 prisoners. 50 of them became believers.
As a single-party state, the government is ever present. Still, among the stars and sickles and portraits of communist hero Ho Chi Minh is another Vietnam, one that has wholeheartedly embraced commercialism. Tourism is one of the biggest injectors of this emerging economy, and the billions it brings in has caused this state to work on its image. A 2004 U.S. State Department report on human rights practices cited Vietnam's poor record on freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. In recent years, Vietnam has done better, thanks in large part to a government initiative to register Christian churches and denominations.
Well, the government of Vietnam made a very concerted effort to get off of the U.S. State Department list of countries of particular concern. They made a very public showing of, look, we're making progress, look, it's different now. They wanted not to be on that list, and it worked.
But Todd Nettleton and Greg Musselman are concerned. As representatives of Voice of the Martyrs in the U.S. and Canada, they travel the world to document cases of Christian persecution. This means going directly to the source.
I'm very impressed with the
Musselman says religious persecution is ongoing, albeit more hidden.
To the outside world, you get this understanding that, hey, things are not so bad in Vietnam, but when you're actually in the country, you start to talk to the believers, you realize that the persecution is still there.
Which brings us back to this video. This is an unregistered church, which makes it illegal. According to Pastor Quang, government registration of churches is the new frontier in the battle for freedom of religion.
Registration is not freedom of religion. If we organize a Christmas celebration, we have to ask for permit. Registration is giving in to tighter control.
Pastor Quang and his church have no plans to register with the government, and they are in the process of rebuilding what was destroyed. He plans on continuing his fight for freedom through legal means, and, most of all, through prayer.
Once we serve God, surely we must go the way of the cross. I will not quarrel against the Lord for what has happened. Once they use violence, they are defeated already. They are afraid.
That's Denise Lottie of 100 Huntley Street with that report from Vietnam. God is doing amazing things in that country. As an example, in North Vietnam, more than half of the Hmong people, which is around 500,000 people, have come to Christ in the past dozen years. Absolutely amazing. And you can view more reports from Vietnam and around the world at persecution.tv. The videos can be downloaded and shown in your church, small group, or to your friends so that they too can hear and see the stories of our persecuted brothers and sisters and to pray for them. Remember, when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer. Thanks for watching the Persecution Report. Goodbye and God bless.
For more information on the ministry of the Voice of the Martyrs and ways in which you can help the persecuted church, please visit our website at persecution.net. That's persecution.net.